Welcome to another edition of the Minority Trailblazer Podcast. And I'm your host, Greg E. Hill, the Culture Change Agent. Oh yeah, you know, my voice a lot different than last week, man. We done got all healthy and stuff like that. Drinking orange juice and Mucinex and all that good stuff, man. So we back in full effect. And I'm excited. This episode is going to be phenomenal. It's a tad bit shorter than the rest, and I will put this out there. I recorded this episode in August 2014. Like, it's an old one, but it still adds value. That's the great thing about great conversations. You know, those conversations that you can have years and before, and they still add value, and it's still sharing a great story. And the guy's still getting it. So I'm excited to share this guest with our show. I mean, if you are a teacher, if you are a lawyer, if you are someone that is thinking about graduate school, this is a podcast for you. Like, we're going to be talking about some great things. And before I get into his intro and introduce my guest to the show, I just want to share a few things. One, thank you from the bottom of my heart. We had just surpassed 6,000 subscribers and downloads. That is phenomenal. Like, phenomenal. We've only been around 2.5 months. And the feedback that I'm getting, the stories that, man, your podcast is changing my life. Like, every Thursday, I look forward to it. Like, oh, man, there's so many people that I just want to thank. And my last episode of the season, I might just spend a whole episode just thanking people that have supported this show, shared the show, commented, left reviews. That's big. That's big. So thank you. And even if you haven't left a review, I always harp on it. So if you haven't left a review, I need you to stop right now. Stop this podcast. Stop. And leave a review on iTunes. But even if you haven't, thank you just for supporting the show and listening to it. I mean, we're having an hour-plus conversations every week. And some stuff may not interest you, but y'all tuning in anyways, and you find out even the stuff like, oh, I might not be interested in this podcast, not this episode. You find out like, whoa, I got this from this. Photographer taught me about life. Like, I don't even care about photography. Like, so thank y'all for tuning in, and thank y'all for the support thus far, and continue to support the show. Continue to share, continue to tell your friends about it, man. Like, this is huge. And also continue to think about ideas how to start your own podcast and your own different niches and whatnot. Like, this ain't just my platform about myself and I want to be the only black podcaster getting it. No, there's a few others, but there's not enough. So I challenge you right now. If you have an idea, if you have a concept, if you have something that's burning inside that you want to get out to the world, let's get it done in 2016. Get your podcast out there. So without further ado, before I get into I'm sorry, I'm cutting myself off. Also, please, if it's your first podcast and you find out you enjoy it, you can find all the rest of the podcast at www.greggyhill.com. Also, if you're interested in being a guest or you want to reference a guest for season 2 of the podcast, which we already have around 25 guests confirmed, or 25 to 30 guests confirmed, you can still submit your request and send it to greg@greggyhill.com. Just put a subject line, send me a request, and I'll do the best job I can to reply to you within the next week or so. So let's get into the bio of our guest. He is a second-year law student at New York University School of Law. He serves as the president of the Black Allied Law Students Association, BALSA, and is a staff editor for the Review of Law and Social Change. He is a 2012 graduate of the #1 HBCU in the world, North Carolina A&T State University. He interned with Common Cause North Carolina during college, registering students and members of the community to vote. And as an intern, he helped promote the collegiate voice in the fight against 2011 voter ID bill in North Carolina. I mean, he was on the front line of that voter ID bill, which is crazy, but that's neither here nor there. It was during this struggle that he recognized his call to enter the legal profession. And as an attorney, he intends to fight injustices in our legal system that are still being perpetrated against many sectors of our society. He's worked for the Brennan Center for Justice in the summer 2015, working on things like voter rights, fair courts, money in politics, all that good stuff. He also is a bit unique. He served as a 2012 Teach for America Corps member teaching 8th grade special education at KIPP Central High Academy in inner city New Orleans. I mean, and inspiration for entering the legal field originates from the biblical and a community standpoint. I mean, he believes that he is called to speak for those who cannot speak for themselves, to defend the defenseless, and empower those who feel powerless. And that's the formal bio. Sounds good. New York Law School, check. He didn't mention he was in the trials program sponsored by New York Law and Harvard Law, check. North Carolina A&T, Aggie, you already know, Aggie Pride, check. Teach for America, teaching special ed children in NOLA, check. I mean, dude's been interning for NDC, doing all that stuff since his freshman year, check. He's a beast. He's a beast. But most importantly, he's just a solid dude that enjoys the community, enjoys serving others, and keeps it 100. So allow me to introduce my brother, my fraternity brother as well, my dear friend, my future lawyer, a future world changer, and the man, the myth, he ain't a legend yet. My brother, Mitchell Brown, to the Minority Trailblazer podcast. Welcome to the show.
What's going on, my good people? My name is Mitchell Brown. As Greg said, I'm a current 1L at New York University School of Law here in the great New York City. I love New York City, by the way. I'm from the country. I'm from Fredericksburg, Virginia. It's about a little small town about an hour south of D.C. And, I lived there my whole life until I went to North Carolina A&T, where my other side of the family lives. So I went to Greensboro, and I learned a lot at A&T. I learned that I have to give back to my community. I learned that I have to make sure that I'm a leader in my community. And I would not have learned that at any other school but North Carolina A&T State University. So I'm grateful for that. After A&T, as Greg said, I did Teach for America down in New Orleans, Louisiana. And part of the reason why I did Teach for America was because of the opportunity to take part in my community and to give back to my community, especially young minorities in inner city New Orleans. And a big thing that has been instilled in me from a young age is that I've been blessed to have what I have, and we have to pay it forward. Those that are blessed have to pay it forward to those that are not as blessed as us, and continue to pay it forward and tell them to pay it forward, because that's how true legacies are made. And I'm a big person about legacy. I want to make sure that when I go to an area, whether it be Greensboro, whether it be Fredericksburg, whether it be now in New York City, I take over and I make it happen. Because that's what I've been called to do. Greg calls himself the culture change agent. I'm an agent for change as well, and just trying to make it happen. And so I'm glad to be on this show.
All right, cool. So before we dig deeper into your story and then how you got to where you are today, I like to start the show off with a quote, because you know me well. I'm a big quote guy. I'm like probably one of the biggest quote guys in the world. And I just think I love to get that motivational ball, that positivity rolling early in the show. So, Mitchell Brown, take it away. What is your quote? And then give us a story about how you apply it to your everyday life.
I got you. This quote, I've been saying this quote to myself nearly every day for the last 8 years. It's, if purpose is present, then nothing can stop the determined individual from his or her rendezvous with destiny. And how I apply it to my life is, I have a purpose. God has given me a purpose in this world. And I know somewhat of what that purpose is now because I'm in law school. But with that purpose, it's meant for me to use that purpose to manifest my destiny. And so as I go through my life and with this purpose in mind, because I have it, nothing will stop me from achieving my goals. Nothing will stop me from making it happen. Nothing will stop me from doing what God has called me to do. And that is to make a difference in this world. And that's how I apply it. I'm not going to be stopped. You can't stop me.
Well, tell us a story, though, of a rough time that you had, and this quote, and you realizing that I cannot be stopped. Walk us through a story. I want to be right there with you. Tell us a story where something, not bad, but maybe a failure, maybe an opportunity you missed or something like that, where you had to apply this specifically to your life to get through it.
Great question. I think it was when I was in Teach for America. I'm doing my first year in New Orleans. I'm a brand new teacher. See, Teach for America, let me back it up a little bit. Teach for America has a 6-week institute period where they basically teach you how to become a teacher. So they teach you different skill sets, different things about how to teach your kids. And so I come off of that, and I think that I'm the man. I think that I know what I'm doing. And I mean my kids.
Uh-huh.
And from that first day, they gave me so much of a headache that's not even funny.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I had to think to myself, like, why am I teaching? Why am I here? And because of that quote, and because I knew that I was purposed to be there, I knew that I had to make it through, and that nothing there was going to stop me. My administration wasn't going to stop me. Mitchell wasn't going to stop Mitchell. And and that's the biggest thing, because I could have said, no, I'm done with this. It's not for me. But I knew God had called me to be down there in New Orleans, and because of that purpose, I knew that it was destined for me to be in these children's lives. And it turns out that those kids, turned out to be some of my most memorable kids, because I still talk to them to this day. And one of them in particular, he got in some trouble, and I helped him out of that trouble, and I'm like a father figure to him. And if I had quit on him, if I had not, established have my purpose established and continue moving forward, then I would have lost the opportunity to speak into his life. And so I used that quote, and it just, nothing stopped me. Like, I knew I can't be stopped. I have to do this. I can't let my fears, my failures, or their attitudes, behaviors, or other people's thoughts stop me from doing what I know God has called me to do.
Man, that's powerful, man. That's powerful. And I got a question, because I want to dig into your background. But before I do that, I had a question. With your experience coming right off that 6-week training program, and you already had, and we're going to talk about it later, but you had a lot of leadership experience and talking and working with kids and people. And then to come your first day and kids are acting crazy. What was that like? And then how did you alter your process over the next couple of weeks to get the kids on your side?
What was it like? It was a humbling experience. It was definitely a humbling experience, because it showed me that even I can be the most prepared person in the world. Nothing will prepare you for the job nothing will prepare you for the job of a teacher, but more importantly, the job of speaking to a young person's life. You don't know this young person's background. You don't know where they've come from. And so it was a very humbling experience to know that, there's people out there. I always knew there's people out there that were less fortunate than me. But to actually be in a position where I can change that for them, and even give them an opportunity to be more successful in the future, and it was all on me to do that. That was a very humbling experience. I like to think that, I can make a lot of things happen, but this one I actually had to work for. I had to work for this one, And so to answer the second part of your question, how did I get them on my side, is I listened to them. Nobody had listened to them. And there's one story where this young man, I gave him detention the first day of class. Probably the first period of class, he decided he wanted to curse me out and just act a fool in my class. I'm like, no, you staying after school, you got detention. He's like, I don't have a ride, Mr. Brown. No, you still staying after school. I don't care. You're still staying after school. But what happened after school is he did his detention, and we had what you call detention packets, which are reflection packets, where you had to write about what you did and just get you thinking about, the decision that you made. After that, we talked for 2.5 hours about his rap music, about his life, and about his struggles with school, and about his just struggles in general, and also his successes. And at the end, he said, Mr. Brown, I want to tell you something else. I want to say thank you for listening to me. Nobody has taken the time to listen to me. And because of that, because I took the time to listen to him, I took that message from him, because he's spoken to my life. Mm-hmm. I'm coming in to speaking to his life. He's spoken to my life. And I took that message and I started listening to my kids. And I started listening to what they were saying, both verbally and just what they weren't, like what they were saying, what they weren't saying, and just listening to them gave me insight into who they were as people, and I was able to tailor the way what I did and how I taught to the way that they learned.
Wow.
And that made all the difference. Because at the end of the day, they knew that if another teacher was getting on their nerves or whatever, they could come to Mr. Brown, and Mr. Brown was going to listen to them and was going to give them feedback, give them advice, whether they liked it or not. That wasn't a question, you know. But I was going to give them advice and just listen to them. And after that, we came to a conclusion about what their next steps should be, and that made all the difference.
Wow, that's powerful, man. That's powerful because, like, all of us out there that may be listening or whatnot, even if you're not a teacher, even if you're a college student, or if you're a young adult, it all boils down to actively listening. Because just like you said, you probably went to the conversation before this, like, okay, let me add value. Like, let me serve him. I know a lot. Let me just give him my knowledge and advice. But it ended up after talking to him, you realize, wow, I mean, I learned a lot from this. And just the kid just understanding that, hey, I just want to listen to you, man. And a lot of our kids nowadays, and especially in the minority community, they just want to be heard or listened to. Because even sometimes I find myself preaching at kids, especially my little brother, or adults. All I do is telling them what to do, what not to do. And they're like, oh, okay. That's why they listen to the rap music. They listen to everything else because nobody is really listening to them. So I think that's one key takeaway that everybody listening, can take. Just take a second and listen to what the person says, because we all know right now, half of y'all that listening to this podcast probably on your phone doing something. Nobody gives anybody else their full attention anymore. How many times have you been out, Mitch, at a restaurant or something like that, and everybody's looking down at their phones?
Not like at least 80% of the time, everybody's on their phone. Like the phone's on the table, and that's why I established the rule: no phones on the table.
Yep. And then when you're talking to somebody, how many times are they intently looking into your eye and then listening to really what you're saying? Like that only happens like maybe 10-20% of your conversation, does it?
Exactly. Those conversations are few and far between.
And the crazy thing about it is when you're talking to somebody and you're looking them dead in their eye and you're listening, it has a outrageous amount of it's a big difference, because the person listening, they realize that, oh wow, you're really listening, man. I really like that skill. I've done that all the time with especially business leaders or important people or anybody in general. That's one takeaway right now. Everybody write this down or just think about it in your head. One takeaway right now you can have. Next conversation you have, look the person in his eyes and listen, please. So, Mitch, let's talk about your experience at A&T a little bit beforehand. I know you said you chose to go A&T. What other schools did you apply to?
I applied to Morehouse. That was my number one choice. I really wanted to go to Morehouse, to be a Morehouse man. You know, I've always heard about that. And then also William & Mary, UVA, and North Carolina State. I wasn't too keen on going to an HBCU at the time, but I'm so glad I did, because it taught me about my culture and it taught me how to become a better African American man.
So how did that process go out? I mean, these are some huge schools: UVA, William & Mary, North Carolina State, and you chose A&T. So what was the deciding factor?
The deciding factor was I'm gonna say it was three things. The first thing was that my whole family lives in Greensboro. 90% of my family lives in Greensboro, so I knew I would have that support system in Greensboro. And my father went there, my grandmother went there, my sister went there, my aunts, uncles, cousins, you name it, they went to A&T. You know, to all my central people, mom went to Central, my grandfather went to Central. You know, we're not gonna hold that against them though. You know, but you know, that was one major thing. And the next thing was I knew that the business school was good, a really good business school under Dean Craig. You know, my dad was an engineer at A&T. He told me about Dean Craig. So I knew that the business school was going to be very proper, and I was going to get a great cultural education as well as academic education at A&T. And the last one, which really put a nail in the coffin, that I was a Dowdy Scholar, which was a full scholarship at A&T. So my dad said I had no other choice. He's like, boy, you got a full scholarship, and we don't have to pay for college. You're going to A&T, you know. And it just happened that turned out to be one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life.
Oh wow, that's powerful. And tell us, because you have an interesting story. Tell us a little bit about before we get into kind of your transition from Teach for America to law school, tell us more about what you did during the summer at A&T, because you were in some interesting programs and you did a lot of interesting internships. So tell us a little bit about that.
After my freshman year, going to A&T, they always push internships and push experience. So I did a program called Inroads. Inroads is a program that places minorities into internships around the country, and mine was in DC. So I did that for 2 years. I interned after my freshman year at Washington Gas. Basically connecting people to technology, connecting the workers to technology, just writing how-to manuals. Like, for example, how to write this document, how to fill out this form, those types of things in the technology field. And then after my sophomore year, I did an intern again at Washington Gas, but this time in the policy and community engagement office. So basically, I like to call myself a junior lobbyist. Working on talking to legislators both in Virginia, Maryland, and the District of Columbia about Washington Gas interests. So like whether it's laying new gas lines or fixing new infrastructure, those types of things, really gave me insight into the political process on the lobbying side. And then after my junior year, I did a program that changed my life. This program is called Trials. And what Trials is it's a program that is meant to help underserved communities, underserved diverse communities to gain access to top law schools. Top law schools being the top 14 law schools in the nation. And that program was a consortium between Harvard Law School and NYU Law School. And it was basically LSAT boot camp. They gave us a stipend for the summer I went to Harvard, so to go to Cambridge and to just learn about the LSAT and just to learn how to be the best on the LSAT. And the goal was after that time there, we would go take the LSAT and we would kill the LSAT. Mm-hmm. And because for many of us, that was the final nail in the coffin for our package to law school. It was the LSAT score because it's very important. And obviously it's worked because I'm at NYU now.
Wow. That's amazing, man. That's amazing. So we're just going to fast track it right now. One, that's crazy. Harvard Trials. We're going to have all the links to see these programs on our show notes. But walk us through, because I know you're a big advocate for teaching and Teach for America, but walk us through your decision to leave Teach for America and to start on this new journey in law.
Got you. So, yeah, I'm an advocate for teaching, but I always knew that wasn't my final destination. Going back to a quote, I'm a quote man too, a quote that I thought about, when I'm making this decision is that where we are now in life is not where we are destined to be, And so taking that, I knew that this was going to be a 2-year thing for me to grow as a man, to grow as a person, to get the education experience that I am, very into. And so I took that and I'm like, this is not where I needed to be. I knew that I wanted to be a teacher. I like teaching. I love mentoring more. And so I knew that it was time for me to go because, I'm not very interested in teaching reading, writing, and math. I'm more interested in teaching you how to do life skills, how to tie a tie, how to become a man or a woman, how to respect people, talk about looking people in the eyes, how to do that. Some of my students didn't know how to look people in the eye. And, my dad taught me from a very young age, you look a man in his eye, it's a sign of respect. And so I knew that it was time for me to go. And I knew that I was going to take this experience and be able to really utilize what I learned through my TFA experience in law school. A lot of people go to law school straight out of college, and and that's all fine and well and fine. But at the same time, they lack some experiences to truly, I'm not say prop up, but truly inform their law school experience. When we're talking about a case, in education or with disabilities. I've experienced that firsthand, and I have a certain set of experience and a certain set of ideas that will help me to really take over that case and understand that case.
Gotcha.
And I just knew that I was meant to go to law school, because I saw a lot of educational inequities down in New Orleans, and I want to change that.
So tell us a little bit more, because I want to dig into this. Tell us a little bit more about some of the educational inequities you saw in New Orleans, because I'm interested.
Got you. Some of the things that I saw were there's a couple things. First is that I taught special ed. So because I taught special ed, a lot of my students were in the general population. And because they weren't in the general population, they weren't, quote unquote, assimilated into these school society.
Uh-huh.
And so that's basically setting them up for failure, because that's setting them up to say, you're a special group, because you're in special ed, but you're not, quote unquote, smart enough to be in general population. And I have a problem with that. My kids, did they have special needs? Yes. But did they need to be in general population? Yes, because in special ed class, this bar is at a certain level, and general ed bar is at another level, and arguably a higher level. I want my kids to be in general population so that they can go reach that higher level. Because if you reach at that higher bar, if you set a higher bar, they will achieve. If they set the bar, they will achieve. And in my class, I set the bar high, but in general ed class, the bar is sometimes a little higher, and I want them to achieve their dreams and achieve their goal, and they couldn't do that. A second thing is that a lot of kids are mislabeled special ed. To be blunt, a lot of these children, then they are special ed, but all they need is somebody to listen to, or somebody to give them some discipline, however that may be. Different parents have different discipline strategies. My parents had a certain set of discipline strategies that some are trying to outlaw right now. I got spankings when I was growing up, and I turned out just fine. But just some semblance of discipline needs to be instilled in these kids, and they wouldn't be special ed anymore. And in fact, I was talking with one of my friends the other day. I'm like, there's a reason why when 8th grade is on a 3rd grade reading level, that he's at that reading level. When in kindergarten, that child cannot read, but you just pass him on. Of course, he's going to have problems later on if you just pass him on in kindergarten. It's just common sense.
Yeah.
And if you keep on passing the child on, then you're going to complain, oh, this child needs help, yada, yada, that's more money I need to spend. No. Give that child the help he needs in kindergarten. You won't have to worry about him in 8th grade anymore. He'll be on track with where his peers are. But when you just pass on kids because you don't have the capacity at your school to teach these kids, it's a problem. And like, granted, at my school, I taught at a charter school at KIPP. KIPP was a very, very good school. And in my school, I was allowed the autonomy to really direct my class the way I wanted to direct it. So I had to teach reading, writing, math, and life skills. And so I was able to, not develop a curriculum, but use the curriculum from general ed and apply and accommodate it to my students, But I had that autonomy, and I had them all day. So I was basically their only teacher. And that within itself is an issue, because you need to have access to more teachers. But I was able to really get to the nitty gritty and help them. I wasn't just going to pass these kids along. So, oh, you don't get it. Oh, next topic. No, I stayed on. I had the opportunity to stay on top. It was like, oh, you don't understand how to do this equation. Okay, let's work on equations. Let's work during lunch. Let's try to get this done, because we had to play catch up now. They had to play catch up, and I had to play catch up now. And I need them to get back on track, because when they go to high school, having a label of special ed in high school can cause some problems when they're trying to go to college. And some of my kids, the track they're on right now is that they're not on track to necessarily get a diploma, they're on track to get a certificate, which basically said, in my view, says thank you for your 12 years in Louisiana education. Now go have a nice day. Wow. And that's a problem. So that's some of the inequities that I see, and that's what I wanted to kind of change in law school, is go back, get this law degree, and go work in civil rights and work on access to education from a very young age. I think, personally, this is my political view, I think that it should be mandatory pre-K education, because a solid pre-K program will eliminate a lot of the educational problems that are prevalent in our educational system today. All it starts with the strong pre-K system, a mandatory pre-K system. That way, when these kids go to kindergarten, they already probably know how to read. And if they don't know how to read, or they have some diagnosed learning disabilities, we can catch it early rather than later.
That's big. That's big. That's big. So let's transition to the future round, man. So Mitch, in the future, if you can kind of get specific, how do you plan on using your law degree exactly? Like, what is your future? What does Mitchell Brown look like in 10 years?
10 years. So 10 years, that puts me in 2024. All right. So in 10 years, hopefully I'll have worked for a civil rights organization. Mm-hmm. So whether that's the ACLU, the NAACP, Legal Aid Society, the myriad of different civil rights organizations, I really want to work in civil rights. And hopefully I'll be in a position where I'll be, a senior official in these organizations, working on civil rights issues, whether that be voting rights, whether that be education, whether that be police brutality. Hopefully, I'll be in these civil rights organizations working as a senior official. Gotcha. And then one day after that, hopefully, going more towards the policy side of the house.
Got you. Another question: if you had to tell Mitchell Brown something, knowing what you do now, 10 years ago, what would it be and why?
Good question. I had to tell myself something 10 years ago. I would say it's another quote, and it's on my wall right now, and it's something that, I wish I would have told myself earlier, and it's, don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And so basically, like, stay true to who you are, and I've stayed true to who I am, but I've definitely let others' opinions influence what I've done in my life. And sometimes it's good influence and sometimes it's not so good influence. But I wish I would have told myself that earlier, so I had that mindset over the last 10 years is to just do me. Others going to have their opinions, but you don't have to listen to their opinions all the time. And what they say about you, what they do to you, it's not a reflection on who you are. You have to be true to who you are and to do you, basically. So that's what I'm telling myself.
That's real, man. I think we can all take something out of that, because even though you hear it all the time, just focus on yourself, don't worry about it, but you really have to remind yourself every single day.
Right.
Because there's so many different situations where you go and you might say something, or you're just constantly thinking about what others are thinking and all this other stuff, man. So that's huge. A last question in the future round. And this is a deep one. I'm sorry I had to go from 0 to 100 real quick. What type of legacy do you want to leave behind?
Okay.
When it's all said and done.
It's all said and done, what kind of legacy do I want to leave? I want to leave a legacy of someone who didn't quit. I want to leave a legacy of someone who gave his all and left it all on the table. I want to leave a legacy of somebody who valued family over work. Mm-hmm. I want to leave a legacy of someone who fought for the rights of those who can't fight for themselves. And lastly, I want to leave a legacy of someone who fulfilled his God-given purpose and truly manifested his destiny.
That's deep, man. So now we're heading to our final round, which is the culture change round, where I'm going to ask Mitchell Brown 5 questions, rapid answer, and we're going to see where he is on it. You ready for it, man?
Let's go.
All right. What is the best piece of advice that you ever received?
To thine own self be true.
What does that mean?
From my grandfather. To thine own self be true. It's a quote from Shakespeare, and it's basically what I said a couple minutes ago. Don't let the noise of others drown out your own inner voice. Stay true to who you are.
Got you. What is one of your personal habits that you can attribute most to your success?
Reading. I read. I'm not gonna say I'm a voracious reader, but I read a lot, and from those books, I glean a healthy amount of knowledge that I'm able to use for my life and to share with others.
Which leads us to our next question. What is your favorite book and why?
My favorite book is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. That book changed my life. I read that in 11th grade, and it just changed my whole mindset about leadership and about where I was going with my life at the time. Because 11th grade, I was 16 years old. I was young 11th grader, so I was 16, and I read that book. And basically it just told me that if I follow these 7 habits, I don't know them off the top of my head right now, but if I follow these 7 habits, then I will be highly effective. And it's panned out. It's true. I follow those 7 habits, and my life has been that much better because I follow those 7 habits.
That's huge, man. What inspires you and keeps you motivated?
What inspires me and keeps me motivated? What inspires me is the fact that I'm following my God-given purpose. And how's that keep me motivated is that I know that I'm on this journey to fulfill my purpose and to fulfill my destiny. You know, you heard me talk about a lot about purpose and destiny, you know, during our conversation, because those two things are very important to me. You know, without purpose, you know, you're just running around aimlessly. But with purpose, you're able to go somewhere. You have a destiny. You have a mission, and you're able to truly manifest that mission, manifest that destiny.
That's deep, man. That's deep. Last question in the culture change round. If you were the president of the United States, what is the first thing you would do?
If I was president of the United States, the first thing I would do is focus on our country. Focus on the United States of America. We've over the past, I'm going to say 15, 20 years, we've had a huge focus on what's going on outside of our borders. Mm-hmm. And not what is going on inside of our borders. You talk about the Mike Brown incident in Ferguson, you know, but honestly, this is something that's happening, is that the media has not forgotten it, but the media has gone to now this ISIS situation in Iraq, you know, or we're worried about Syria, or we're worried about what's going on, you know, in Mexico with them coming across the border, or we're worried about, you know, what Europe is doing. That's fine. That's fine and all. I mean, I'm not saying that foreign policy, you know, is not an important part of the United States. But if you can't take care of home first, then how are you going to take care of somebody else? Mm-hmm. Why are you worried about somebody else if you're not worried about your own people? So if I was president, I would stop focusing on what's happening outside of our borders and focus on what's happening inside our borders. Mainly with police brutality, voting rights, education, immigration. We need to focus on those things because that's impacting us now in this day and age, not what's going on in Syria and Iraq and all that kind of stuff.
That's deep, man. That's deep. So the last question, which is honestly one of the most important questions on the show, man. And if you had one wish, no, my bad, cut that. Last question. If you could change one thing about society, most specifically our African American culture, what would it be and why? So,
one thing I can change about society or about African American culture, or both?
Nah, it's the African American culture. My bad.
One thing, the crab effect. I would change our mindset about the crab effect. That we don't want our brothers and sisters to move forward. You know, the crab effect. You know, for audience that doesn't know, the crab effect is basically where, you know, somebody's trying to succeed and they're making moves up the ladder, quote unquote, but somebody's always nipping at their heels and pulling them back down the ladder. I would, you know, take that away. I would change that, because there could be no success if somebody's continually pulling you down. There can be no success. Mm-hmm. We look at the, you know, the Asian community, we look at the Hispanic community. They work together. They work together for a common purpose. Mm-hmm. This may sound stereotypical, but I don't mean in a stereotypical manner. They may have a bunch of people in the house, mm-hmm. you know, in one house, but I guarantee at the end of the day, in about 5-6 years, they're all going to have their own house because they pool their resources and they make it happen, make it work. And black folks used to do that a long time ago, but we went away from that when we decided we wanted to be bougie, mm-hmm. and do it for ourselves, be fancy and do it for ourselves. That's a problem. We need to work together to achieve some common purposes. Because without that commonality and purpose, and without that, you know, that togetherness, we're going in the wrong direction. You know, it's like Booker T. Washington. You know, we can be we can be separate fingers on one hand, or we can be a mighty fist or something like that. It's some quote like that. You know. Yeah. But basically, together we stand, divided we fall. Basically, and so. If we don't start working together, we're going to fall, and we're seeing that now. Society is throwing us punches left and right, you know. But we only seem to come together when something happens. When Mike Brown happened, when Trayvon Martin, when Jordan Davis happens, we only come together when those things happen. Well, what's happening? What about our voting rights? Our voting rights are being taken away on a daily basis, and we're not doing anything about it. Because we're worried about getting the fastest car, the newest clothes, getting them Air Yeezys or whatever. That's nice, but your voting rights have been taken away. We need to come together.
Spoken like a true Aggie, man. Dog, this has been a privilege. It's been phenomenal getting a chance to hear your story, hear your take on different things. And what's crazy about it, bro, is that we just got a snippet. We didn't even talk about Harvard Trials program. We didn't even talk about your decision of which law school you want to go to in that whole process. We didn't even talk about your first year at law school. So we'll definitely have you back on the show, man. I can't wait to the audience to learn more about your story. And I'm going to be real. Season 2, we're going to change it up a little bit. Well, we're going to, of course, I think we showcase a variety of different people now. But I definitely want to dig into the story of people in graduate schools, people that are attending different business schools, law schools, medical school, so we can paint a wide picture. Because of course we're going to have those mid-career professionals that are out here killing it. National shout out, and guys, he shout out Zim Trapping the War. Shout out to my future people I got in the podcast and I ain't told y'all about yet that are killing it in the middle of their careers. I mean, not the middle, but a little bit more established. And then we have, of course, our college students like the Austin Ogletrees and a few more that we will be showcasing. But I definitely want to highlight some that are in those graduate school programs and walk us through that experience. What does it look like to go to Harvard Business School? What does it look like to go to NYU Law School? What does it look like to go to Matt Harry, and I probably butchered that name, medical school, so please don't be offended. Like, what does it look like to do those things? And so I thank you, man, for keeping it 100 on this episode and giving us a snippet, just a snippet of where we're going to take the thing season 2, man.
No problem, my brother. You got it.
Thank you, man, for all that, man. So, audience, Minority Trailblazer Nation, I hope you enjoyed this show. I tell you, there's only 2 more episodes, and then season 1 is a wrap, like in the books. We 17 episodes in. I never thought we would get this far. It's like, I knew we were going to get this far. I'm already thinking about season 10. I probably won't be the whole season 10. I'll probably bring on somebody else, but I'm already thinking about season 10. So for those of you that would love to enjoy the podcast, I need you to do 2 things, please. 1, leave a rating on the podcast. You can follow it on SoundCloud, leave a comment on SoundCloud, subscribe on iTunes, and leave a rating, please. Write a review. The second, please share this podcast via Facebook, via Twitter, or just share the link via iPhone. And please, for more information, you can go to www.greggyhill.com. If you know anybody, you want to reference anybody for the show or bring somebody on the show, holler at me. Hit me up on the gram at Greggy Hill. Hit me up on Twitter at Greggy Hill. Hit me up on Facebook at Gregory E. Hill, or you can snap me at Gregory E. Hill. And I'll bring them on, or you could just do the regular thing and send me an email at greg@greggyhill.com, and I can make sure I can reach out and bring somebody on, bring a guest on the show that you think would add value. So we already got 30 plus people locked in for season 2, but I'm willing to add more. It's all about adding value to the culture. We're doing some different things season 2, and I'd like to thank you for rocking and listening. So I'm rapping right now. Anybody who knows me know I be rapping. But thank you again for listening. And you know how we always do it. Before I end, I need you to do one thing and one thing only. You're like, what is that, Greg Hill? That is change the culture. Good night.